So, the Irish Post has released a page that I think we should talk about.
I know I'd go back to you.
So, starting off, this is the page. So, transgender women banned from competing as women by USA Powelifting. Now, before I start this video, I really simply just want to say that I do not have any form of bias on this. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I'm not against the LGBTQ community, okay? I've had plenty of friends who have been in the community. I have had 3 girlfriends. My last 3 girlfriends have been in the community. They've all been bisexual. So, simply put, I do not have, there is no ill intent towards the LGBTQ community from this video. Please do not take anything I say and twist it. I do not mean any of this in a rude way. I'm just giving my straight up opinion. And it's very hot in here, so I'm probably going to start sweating, which means I'm going to need one of these. No, one of these, which is full. So, I quickly want to start by saying that I saw this on Scott Herman's channel, Scott Herman Fitness, which gave me a real insight to I watched the full video, I saw his opinions, and I really honestly agree with them. So I'm going to start off by saying, again, no malintent, no nothing. Please not take anything the wrong way. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of backstory here. They made the policy after their research conclude that biological men have an unfair advantage over biological women when it comes to the sport that extends beyond testosterone levels and cannot be reversed with hormones. So this would go to things such as bone structure, it would go to things as bone density, their joint thickness. If I'm going to be 100% honest, I have been doing some research over the last few years, and this is not to separate the LGBTQ community from the straight community, I guess. But I have been doing research on whether being of a different sort of sexual orientation has differences in testosterone or estrogen or stuff like that. Purely because I want to see how that would impact directly onto weightlifting and athletic performance. Do I think that it's a good move banning transgender women from women's competitions? There's 2 perspectives on this. Okay, so let's look at this from the biological woman's point of view. Okay, so you have been training your whole life. You have been attempting to better yourself in order to be able to beat your competitors, simply. And all of a sudden, you get this biological man who's transgendered, who has made the transition into being a woman, who has, so let's say for argument's sake, let's take 2 examples. Let's take a 30-year-old man that's completed the transition at 30, and let's take 18 to 20-year-old man who's completed the transition. Either way, both of those have pretty much hit. So at 18 to 20, your testosterone is still relatively low compared to what it will be at 25, 26, 27. So when they've made that transition, sure, hormones do not play a role. Bone mass and stuff like that, lung capacity, those kind of things will come into play because physiologically, hormone suppressants cannot change the size of your lungs or the size of your bones. So now let's go to the 30-year-old man who's transitioned into being a woman. So they have had all their hormones. So if they've been training from a young age, they have had the benefit of using all of those hormones that they've been gathering up since the age of puberty all the way up to the age of 30, where the hormones begin to decline. At that point, I'm sorry, but you've already achieved the muscular hypertrophy to be able to be superior in a certain sport to a woman. Again, no offense, no sexism here, just straight up, because of testosterone, your muscular hypertrophy will be greater than that of a woman. On the other hand, again, you've got the woman who's been is a biological woman at the age of 30 who's competing in powerlifting or whatever, and all of a sudden you've got this lady that comes in who's a transgender woman and can beat her total by an extra 100 or 200 kilos. I think if I remember well, there was a gentleman called Craig. Please do not quote me on this. This is just rough memory. Who ran a time at 57.21 or something like that, and second place. Craig, let this just for the record, Craig was a transgender woman, so he used to be called Craig, then made the transition, then was called someone else, something else. However, Craig went to compete. He got a 57.21 second score. I cannot remember what it was. I think it might have been 400 meters or something like that. I can't remember. And second place behind him was all the way at 59 point something, 59.7 I believe. So that is a 2-second gap. I'm going to take out the points because I can't remember which way around it was. So that is a 2-second gap, okay? That 2 seconds in running is a very, very large amount of time. And that person was then, their coach later on said that when they were competing as a male, they had really mediocre scores, which shows that the gap is there. Being a mediocre athlete in a male's category, then making transition over to female and going and dominating the competition by 2-second win. Put yourself in the position of that second person. How would you feel? Because I'm not gonna lie, again, on one side, they should be able to compete. Like, transgender people should not be disallowed to compete. That should not be the case. However, in my opinion, they should not be competing in biological women's competitions, because it is unfair on the women. Because imagine being a kid and being like coming up to the scene, and let's say you're I don't know, 2022, right? And you're just coming up to the like semi-competitive scenes. Let's say you're at nationals, internationals, or counties, or whatever you guys call it over in America, and you see this person who you can't physically get to the point of. Unless you hop on some form of gear, you cannot get to the point of. The only option that there is to keep a balance, a form of balance, to not ban transgender people from competing, and to not it being unfair to biological women, would be to either make a new category, which there'd be a lot of backlash because it'd be classed as discrimination and forming a gap between the LGBTQ and the straight community. Obviously that would cause a lot of backlash from the LGBTQ community, and for anyone who's got nothing against the LGBT community from the straight community. Or you could say they are allowed to compete, but not at natural competitions. So they cannot compete at competitions where the other competitors are not on steroids. It's really difficult. Obviously it's a very touchy subject, and it's not something that is very easy to talk about. However, looking at it from the other perspective, from females transitioning into males, that would be unfair for them as well, because they would not have the same amount of hormones before the transition, and they would not have the same muscular the same bone density, the same joints, same lung capacity. Do I agree with what the USA Powerlifting has done? I want to say no, but at the same time I kind of do, because I'm sorry, but that is not, like, being a biological woman and being beat by someone who has got an unfair physiological advantage is not, it puts you down morally. And it will also make you think, well, okay, if that is the case, then I'm going to stop competing, and then you lose athletes. However, on the other hand, you cannot take the right of someone who wants to be a different gender, you can't take their right to compete away. Because again, you're losing athletes, you're going to lose interest. In my opinion, they've handled it really wrong. So they've said, while it might be emotionally provoking to demand the rights of a few, the rights of others, the athletes who wish to compete in an organisation with rules that provide clean and fair sport must also be considered. Again, do I agree with what USA Powerlifting has done? To an extent. Do I think they've handled it right? Definitely not. The only reason why I partially agree is because, again, you're going to be losing athletes who are losing to levels that they cannot physiologically achieve without being on some form of performance enhancing drugs. However, on a more brighter note, second part of this video, I just want to say that I am making plans for next year to go to Bali. Now, in order to achieve this, I'm thinking of doing a fundraiser, which, for example, there'll be a certain amount of money for a certain challenge. So, let's say I will have, if I raise £50, I'll do something. If I raise 100, I'll do something even more kind of daring. 200 even more, 300 even more, and it will go up as so. I'm thinking doing 50, 100, 250, 500, 750, 1000. 1000 would be something like shave my head or something stupid like that. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because obviously it's a very controversial topic, and I wanted to shine some light on my opinions on it. And I know that, you know, before you go down, type away in the comments and give me shit, think about what would be fair for both parties. Think about what you would want if you were in both of the situations. If you were a natural athlete competing against transitioned males, or if you were a transgender female being stripped of their titles and not being able to play. Other than that, I'm going to end this video here. I'll see you guys all in the next one.